Yoram ji, it's your turn.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to Ram Madhav and to everyone at the India Foundation. It's a great honor to be here. It's a great honor for my country, for Israel, to have a small delegation included in your important deliberations. Look, I have to be frank. I think it's been a little bit difficult to spend 2 full days talking about branding Bharat, because branding as an exercise that we're all participating in here, it's a joyful, optimistic kind of an exercise. We hear many different people. Almost all the speakers talk about the brilliant future, and these are sentiments that I share. If anyone were to ask me, no one asked me, but if somebody had put me on one of these branding panels and said, what kind of branding do you think we should have for India? I would have said, brilliant Bharat, brilliant Bharat. And I'm not saying that to flatter. I'm saying that from the heart, as an admirer. That what is it really that for 2 days you've been talking about? Brilliance in science, brilliance in spiritual contributions to the world, a brilliant future. I think it works well. I'm in favor of it. So there, I contributed something to the good feeling, and if anybody wants any more of my help in that, I'd be happy to contribute. But our job on this panel and on the next panel is not to make people feel good. Our job is to talk about the obstacles and the challenges, and that's also crucial in branding. I mean, Coca-Cola. If Coca-Cola sits down to discuss its brand, they begin by talking about the rivals. They say, what's a market survey? We have Pepsi competing. We have all this competition, and that we haven't done so much. And in fact, I think that has made the discussion in many ways very difficult. I would say that the atmosphere of the last 2 days, in which, more or less the feeling is there are no enemies, there are no rivals, there are no really big dangers. The future is blue skies. The future is open. We can be friends with everyone. We've heard that from a number of speakers, that we can be aligned with everyone. We can be aligned with China and America and Israel and Iran. We can be aligned with everyone. But I feel like I've been here before. I feel like I've heard all of this before. And I don't mean to be insulting, because, like I say, I feel like I'm a friend. But I think that if we could enter a time machine and go back to, let's say, Tony Blair in the late 1990s and his branding, Cool Britannia. He's going to change Britain from an old oppressive empire that people resent, and change it into something open and young and future-oriented and cool. And all of these feelings are feelings that you can feel here 30 years later. But I would like to ask, because I think it's the responsible thing to do, what happened to Cool Britannia, to all of those good feelings, to the worldview where Britain could be friends with everyone, that it had to be enemies to no one. So now it's 25 years later, almost 30 years later. And you could make a very strong case that, and many of my friends in Britain, they do make this case. You could make a very strong case that in the 25 years since Tony Blair rebranded Britain, that the United Kingdom has destroyed itself. Right? That's not me speaking. If you talk to nationalists or religious people or conservatives on the right in the UK, they would tell you Britain has destroyed itself. How did this happen? How How did you go from all of this good feeling and openness that we've been hearing the last couple of days to a country which is feels like it's on the verge of irreparable disaster? And the answer is, this takes us to the topic of wokeism or woke neo-Marxism. The answer is that while we here, or they in Britain, or in America and other countries, in Israel, in my country, we had a similar phenomenon, while the business people and the intellectuals are busy imagining an open world where everyone's going to cooperate with us, everyone's going to like us, no one's going to hate us, competition is going to be friendly competition. While that's going on, we tend to forget that there are people, many people, who spend their time trying to figure out how to destroy whatever it is that we're trying to brand as a positive thing. All right, and in fact, the way that this works, if you follow the development of the woke neo-Marxist ideology in the universities in America and Europe, if you follow it, you'll see that their goal is precisely whatever is successful about Britain, whatever is great about Britain or America or Israel or India, whatever is great and successful, that's precisely the thing that's going to be attacked. So the woke is the anti-branding. Now, this is an ideology. It's very well developed at this point. There are thousands and thousands of professors at universities in all of the democratic nations who spend their time, they're paid salaries often by the government, they're paid a full-time salary to do nothing other than to think, what can we do to hack the good feeling and the liberalism and the good branding and the strengthening of this country, and to prove to everyone that everything that was strong and good about this country is actually evil and deserves to be destroyed. Now, I don't mention Marxism only in order for name calling. That's not of interest to me. I mention Marxism because the original Marxist idea was explicitly revolutionary. Right? You're all familiar with this, that Marx believed that the working class, the proletariat, would overthrow and destroy the ruling classes and take charge in some kind of a utopian political maneuver. But the key was that the ruling classes had to be destroyed. That didn't work out so well for a simple reason, because it turned out that the working classes are more nationalist than they are Marxist. They love their country, and if their country goes to some trouble to help the working classes advance, then they're grateful and they love their country. So that didn't work. So neo-Marxism is a concoction where academic intellectuals said, okay, the working class is not going to be our friend. So who do we have who can work on destroying the country, achieving that overthrow, achieving the revaluation of everything that was good and destroying it? Family, nation, tradition, religion, country, man and woman, anything that was good and sacred and holy. Our goal is to achieve Marxist revolution, but we're not going to do it with the proletariat. We're going to do it in another way. Marcuse is explicit in his essays in the late 60s and early 70s. All right, and his argument is simple. The proletariat won't help us. What we need is an alliance between the university, the professors who can understand the need to destroy this oppressive country, its evil history, its evil religion, its evil social ways to destroy it. We need professors, and they need to be allied with street fighters, with people who will go to the streets and cause so much disruption that people will become afraid to disagree with the professors. Now, Marcuse thought that the alliance would be intellectuals from the West plus third world, blacks and other minorities. Since then, there's been most of that has happened, but there's been a little bit of a change. At this point, I would say that the woke neo-Marxists in the West have discovered that the most effective street fighters that they have are Muslim supremacists. The most effective ally that Western neo-Marxist professors have is Muslim neo-supremacy, Muslim supremacist organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, I want to be clear, this is not an anti-Muslim speech. I'm sure that the majority of Muslims in most countries are patriots. They want to live in peace with their neighbors. But it is a fact that as we watch the development of the woke in country after country, there is some proportion of the Muslim population. I can't take maybe it's 25%. I don't know what the numbers are. But there's some percentage that are not looking to become patriotic part of their own country. And they're willing to take part with the woke in overthrowing everything that's of value, everything that's of greatness and success about the country in which they live. Why? Because they believe that the future is Muslim. Not Christian, not Jewish, not Hindu, not liberal, but Muslim. All right, so this hack, it's a philosophical, but also a political hack of liberalism. If Marcuse were sitting in the room for the last 2 days, he would say, great, Bharat is ready for the revolution. Listen to them. They think it's all blue skies. They have no enemies. They talk about inclusion. They talk about freedom. They talk about rights. They talk about diversity being our strength. Right? And I don't have a problem with diversity being your strength as long as you understand that diversity is your strength up until the moment that your country disintegrates, like Britain is disintegrating right now, and then it's not your strength anymore. So the issue that I think that we need to face is not, I don't in any way mean to take away from the lovely dreams and aspirations of India. Anything I can do to contribute, I would want to. I feel like a friend. But I think that there's a naivete about this liberalism and diversity and inclusion, which it has basically destroyed Britain. A series of governments for 25 years have been unable to make changes in immigration, in trade, in anything else that the general public feels that they need in order to get out of the woke trajectory of destruction. America is, look, most of you know this, for the last 8 years, Americans have felt that they are on the verge of civil war. And this isn't a joke. They still feel they're on the verge of civil war. They believe that their country has never been as divided, that people have never hated each other as much as since the Civil War, since the 1860s. And India, if it's going to avoid this, has to learn from these experiences. You have to learn what is the weakness of all of this liberalism and thinking in economic terms and including everybody and having no allies because everyone is our friend, we're allied with everyone. There are people who have figured out how to hack that. There are people who have figured out how to make use of your good will and good spirit to destroy you. And they're going to try. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, some of the points you have made are really very disturbing for democracies across the world. Whatever is good has to be destroyed. In America, UK, India, wherever, all the democracies. And this must be really a very small coterie of intellectuals and so on in some universities and media and so on, isn't it? That is exactly what it is in terms of numbers.
Look, everyone, for decades, the answer, if someone would say, let me give obvious examples. If you're not familiar with these books, you probably are, but look them up. In 1987, Alan Bloom wrote a book called The Closing of the American Mind. In 1991, Dinesh D'Souza wrote a book called Illiberal Education. Both of these books, the first written by a Jew, the second by a Hindu. Actually, Dinesh is Christian, but he's Indian, so you should claim him. both of these books, laid out the entire trajectory of how the universities were going to be first taken over by, the word woke didn't exist back then, but the neo-Marxist revolution, how it would first take the universities and then use the education system to take over the schools, the media, the Hollywood, the government bureaucracies, in short, every institution which has, and the courts, of course, every institution that relies on some degree of intellectual, of ideas, where ideas are important to what's going on. Every such institution, they argued, is going to be, in the end, taken over by the universities, because the universities are teaching the students to hate these existing institutions, and they're teaching them how to go out and take them over, how to destroy them from the inside. Now, for all these decades, most people said, well, this is ridiculous. I'll tell you exactly what my conservative friends, for decades, they said, okay, that's college. They'll finish college, they'll go into the real world, they'll join a business, they'll see reality, and they'll grow up. And the opposite happened. Exactly the opposite happened. That they went out into the world, they went to work at the New York Times or at Princeton University or in the American Army or in Hollywood, and instead of growing up, they waited until they were strong enough, and then in the summer of 2020, that was the Cultural Revolution in American Britain. Yes. In the summer of 2020, they demanded change, and the entire liberal establishment, thousands of institutions, collapsed before them. So it's not a small number of people anymore. Now it's a major movement.
I think it's going to be a tough proposition in dealing with this culture, woke culture. But if we don't, then I think all democracies are going to be in grave danger, and that's going to be a very sad day for all of us. But I must say that the India Foundation stands as a testimony to fight wokeism. And it's very important. It's very important that we have established an institution of this sort, and this is going to play a very critical role in India, and I'm sure globally, now that we have all these connections with you and many other scholars across the world. And the other thing is that this conclave itself is, in a sense, a testimony to our resolve to stand up for our values, our democracy, our traditions, our faith in plurality and in fairness as a nation. And I think this is very, very important, and it's really a proud moment for us for having an institution like this, and Ram Madhav ji must take all the credit for having set it up.